What's up, guys? This is Tai Zen and Leon Fu, and we're excited to have with us here today Aaron. He is one of the most popular and prolific Nextcoin ambassadors on Bitcoin Talk and on all the Nextcoin forums. And it took us a while, but we were able to finally get a hold of him. And he's sitting down with us to do the interview today. So we're going to go over a few topics about Nextcoin that a lot of people have questions about, and a lot of myths that we would like Anon to or Aaron to clear up for us. So I have a list here, and so does Leon. We're going to talk about different topics here about Nextcoin, guys. We're going to talk about forging. We're going to talk about the security of Nextcoin, the decentralized exchange, the proof of stake versus the proof of work. And what we'll do is we'll, after we record this interview, we'll break it up into separate sections so that you can go directly to that video and not have to watch through several hours to get your answers, okay? So welcome onto the show, Aaron, and thanks for joining us today, and thanks for having your daughter with us too. Let's talk about the newest inventions of Nextcoin, Aaron. You had mentioned in your popular paper why Nextcoin ought to be taken seriously. You mentioned that there is a few inventions that Nextcoin came out with that is completely different and is revolutionary versus Bitcoin. Could you discuss that a little bit?
Sure. I guess mainly it's what they call transparent forging.
Yes.
Which is sort of a mixing of the idea that there's some predictability in the short term for who's gonna author blocks in the future, but uncertainty in the longer term. So the uncertainty in the longer term gives us security, but the ability to predict in the short term gives us the ability to do lots of neat things, basically. Higher transaction volumes, faster transactions, potentially instantaneous transactions.
Okay, because right now Bitcoin is limited to a certain number of transactions per minute or per second, right? It does not have like credit card speeds when it comes to transactions.
Well, and Next is going to be limited in that sense too, because obviously a transaction is it's information that everybody who uses the network has to store, and so there's a limited amount of space that they can store. But there's some reasons why we expect that Next could potentially store a lot more.
When you say that this this predictability in the short term of who is because Next does not have. By the way, guys, for the listeners, some of us will Next. The NXT is often the correct term is Next. You'll hear me refer to Nextcoin by mistake oftentimes simply because when I first looked into it. The first site that I went to look was called nextcoin.org. So ever since then, I'm kind of stuck with Nextcoin. But just know that the correct name for this new economic and financial and currency system is called Next. All right. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about how the transparent forging works, just so that the audience can understand it? How does it know in the short term who is going to process or forge the next block of data for the blockchain?
Okay, so there's no way to actually know for sure. What you can do is make an educated guess. And the fact that you'll be wrong on that educated guess sometimes is where the security comes from. If you could always predict it, then it wouldn't work. And what you can do is people have to hold their stake stationary for a certain amount of time. And it's mathematically predictable which account is the one that will be able to make the next block the soonest. Like you can look and you can see. What you can't know for sure is whether that particular account is participating at the time, whether they're working on forging. And that's where the uncertainty comes from. But when you have bigger stakeholders who are reliable, then you can say with a relative degree of certainty, say, okay, this is the account that is entitled to author the next block the soonest. And he's a long history of doing that, being reliable in that sense. And so he's probably going to be the one who does it. And every once in a while, you're going to come across an account that's smaller, right? It's random which account is going to have the right to author an X block, in the sense that it's like each unit of Next that you have is like a lottery ticket. So sometimes smaller accounts will win the right to author. And that, that'll take people by surprise and prevent you from being able to calculate out into the future and place your stake into an account that will win in the future in anticipation of that.
Oh, okay.
That would be really bad if you could do that.
Okay, so there's no front running on who the next account that's going to forge the next block is. Basically.
Right. That's really important, and that's where you need that little bit of longer term uncertainty in order to prevent that.
Okay. Okay. So let's just do an example here. Let's just say that if Leon if Leon had, let's just say for example, 1 million Nextcoins in his account, and I have 100,000 in mine, and you have 10,000 in yours. Okay. So what basically, if I understand you correctly, the network, the Nextcoin network, is going to determine. First of all, we each have to hold those Nextcoins in our account for at least 24 hours before the account can start forging. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a really important part. That's what prevents the front running, because you have to hope that enough random elements, enough unpredictable forgers will come in within that 24-hour period in order to prevent anybody from being able to predict 24 hours and a minute out.
Okay. So now, if Leon's account has 1 million Nextcoins in it, and my account has more than yours, what is the chance that you are ever going to forge the next one? And basically what you're saying is that it's just a lottery ticket. Each
Right.
Nextcoin that we have is just a lotto ticket that gives us an opportunity to forge the next block then.
Exactly. It's like, you can imagine an old guy on the television reaching in and pulling out a random number each time. And then each next that you have is an entry into that.
Okay.
The more you have, the higher your chance, but there's still randomness in that.
Okay, so even though Leon has 1 million Nextcoins in his, he has more probability, but it does not guarantee that he will forge the next block.
Right. And we can look and see, based on some of the math that underlies the forging process, whether or not the next block is set to be authored by you or him, and we can predict that. But if you were to happen to drop off the network sometime within the next 24 hours, it would disrupt that whole chain of predictability, right?
Oh, okay.
It would branch into two possible outcomes, and each, and then that would branch out exponentially, unrealistically, when you have a lot of actors working and reasonable amount of uncertainty entering into the
okay. So that basically what you're saying is that uncertainty increases the security of the network.
Yeah, it's important. The predictability is really important because it gives us those nice features, but the uncertainty is even more important.
And okay, so basically, what the certainty in where the next account is going to forge the next block allows the network a pretty much a, would you say, a consensus to send all the transactions to that person. So basically, if we know that your account, with the high degree of probability that your account is going to forge the next block, then basically
we would know that your account had the right to forge it. What we wouldn't know necessarily is whether or not you were available and forging, right?
Okay, okay. So because of that, the network is able to send all the transactions your way for you to process it.
With Bitcoin,
what happens if we all send our transaction to that node, and then that node drops off? Then where do those transactions go?
Well, what would happen is that the next one, in the next account in line to author that, right? Because there's an infinity of contingency plans. Every single participant in forging is a contingency plan, all the way up to the guy who has his very last in line for having the right. Everyone could, in theory, eventually.
So we would all have to retransmit that transaction, correct?
Yeah, that's true. It would just, he would drop off, and since you sent it directly to him, then the next guy would forge, and presumably he would forge an empty block because no one would have been expecting. I guess maybe in theory you could send your own contingency plan, just send to the first in line, and just in case he blocks off, also send it to the second in line.
Okay, but the software handles that, correct? The software just will detect that forger is not on the network anymore, and then.
Well, right now we aren't. I mean, we're really early in this thing, so nobody is sending their transactions direct to the next forger yet. It's working like Bitcoin right now.
It's just at the way the code's written right now, it's just broadcasting to everybody, I guess. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
okay.
Rebroadcasting now.
And Aaron, is that because we do not have a large enough number of transactions for the transparent forging to kick in?
Well, we could do it in theory. There's just no need right now, right? That's going to give us Visa level transaction. Well, we're nowhere near Visa level transaction load, so it's not an imperative right now.
Okay. Okay.
We get 1 or 2 transactions in a block if we're lucky, so it's just not even an issue.
So that is one. So the transparent forging is one of the key inventions of Next. What is the other one that you mentioned in your paper?
The 2 implications of transparent forging are high volume at low cost and high speed, right?
Okay, the volume and the speed.
and the cost. So I guess that there's really 3 main things, right? Because with Bitcoin, there's tremendous amounts of money that's being spent, or resources that are being spent on mining, and that's not some nebulous cost that's passed on to the environment or something. That's cost that's borne by the users of Bitcoin. Right now through inflation, in the future through transaction fees, but it's a real cost. It has to be transferred. It's a transfer of value from one party to another. With Next, there has to be a little bit of a transfer of value because you need to incentivize nodes to run the forging process, because the more of them that do, the more security you get. But there's a whole lot less need. It's a lot cheaper to incentivize people to do that than to incentivize people to go start some ASIC fabrication plant or something, right? I mean, like if you look at some big ASIC fabrication factory or something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just magically coming out of nowhere. That's you paying for that by holding Bitcoin and by not spending it, by leaving it in your account over time. You're paying for that giant fab plant, right?
Yeah. It's not cheap either. I actually researched, my colleagues and we researched into the fabrication of some ASIC chips, and it costs somewhere like close to $3 million to get even the prototypes made up.
Yeah, and if you're holding Bitcoin, it's just sitting on a key, somewhere.
Yeah.
You're paying for that plant. It's not this in an indirect way,
Yeah, yeah. Someone has to bear that cost. So, okay. Let me see. Now, the forging right now is at one next. The fee to process the blocks. It's forging and it's not mining because people only get paid for the transaction fees. They do not mint new coins. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, some people have said that it's unfair because the 73 original stakeholders have all the Next coins and is not decentralized, right? What's your thoughts on that, Aaron?
It's a good argument. My hope is that those original 73 will recognize the merit of that argument and so work diligently to counteract it. And I think we've seen that, other than a few people who are not really playing ball like they should. And if you're watching this, you need to start. A lot of people have done a lot of good work to spread it around. There's some statistics out there about Bitcoin versus Nextcoin. Have you seen those?
Yes.
The distribution.
Yeah. It says a lot of people.
So I mean, I think in some sense. I think in some sense the fact that people recognized that this was a problem meant that it ended up being less of a problem than it would be with something like Bitcoin.
Okay.
I also think that there's by just reading the forums, there's a philosophical difference about how they accuse Next or many other coins of being pre-mined because they believe that the only fair way to get coins is to mine them. right? That seems to be their argument, that it's pre-mined, that the fact that you bought into it means it's not fair, right? I think that's a philosophy that many people in the community seem to have, and I think we could debate about whether or not that's true, but it's an opinion that many people hold.
Life is all about trade-offs, right? I mean,
yes.
If you want these really fast transaction times and high volumes, then you're not going to get that with mine. Low cost transactions and whatnot. I wish more people had bought into that initial IPO. It would have been better if they had. It's an ongoing thing we're working to correct.
Okay, so.
Hey, I just want to wrap it up here. Aaron, you have a lot of articles out on the internet about Next, and then you have a lot of writing out there. Now, does someone have to contact you in order to what do you call that? Does someone have to contact you in order to use those articles, or they are welcome to use your articles and it's okay, and they just need to reference you, or what's the policy on that?
Information is nobody's property.
Okay, so you have no problems with people using your articles on their websites or their blogs or anything like that?
They can do anything other than change it and say that that's what I wrote.
Okay, so as long as they use it in your words...
or change the words and say that they changed the words.
Okay, as long as they're clear that they re-edit it, and which portions they re-edit it. Okay.
As long as they don't say that I said something that I didn't say. Everything else is fine.
Okay, okay. I would also like to add to anyone watching this that I have included at the bottom of all these videos in this interview with Aaron here, and I'm grateful that he took the time to answer a lot of our questions here. I'm including his next address below. If you guys want to make donations for his efforts directly to him, be aware that the address below, and I will mark it very clearly that they belong to him, so you can donate directly to him, even though the videos are on my blog. And I guess if you have a Bitcoin address, you can include it down there too, and I'll post it down there too. Okay?
Sounds good. Hey, thanks for that.
Okay, Ty.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for your time today, guys, and I hope that this video was able to help you understand more about Next. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks.